Namaskar. Today is National Science Day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded the scientists for their contribution to nation building in his Mann Ki Baat radio address. And the day also saw the successful launch of PSLV C-51 carrying 19 satellites, including Amazonia 1 of Brazil. We'll focus on what this means for India's space cooperation, and we'll also turn our lens onto the emerging situation in Myanmar, where the junta has cracked down on protesters with the use of force. Let's begin with the headlines. My name is Mark Lin. Second phase of vaccination against COVID-19 starts from Monday. Those above 60 years of age, as well as those above 45 years of age with comorbidities, to be vaccinated. Private sector to be roped in for the inoculation drive too. All arrangements are in place in all states. PM Modi says self-reliant India is not just a government policy but a national spirit. In the 74th edition of Mann Ki Baat, the Prime Minister says seeing Made in India vaccines and Tejas in flight enhance the nation's pride. Prime Minister remembers the discovery of the Raman effect on National Science Day. Says that science is not limited to laboratories but is an important contribution to the nation's development. ISRO's first mission of 2021 sees the launch of 19 satellites under its commercial arm New Space India Limited. The Prime Minister congratulates Brazil on the successful launch of Amazonia 1 on board PSLV C-51. Amit Shah campaigns in Tamil Nadu and Puducherry hits out at Rahul Gandhi, saying that he is a 4-term member of parliament in the Lok Sabha and does not even know the different government departments. Highlights central plans for the uplift of the underprivileged, and Rahul Gandhi as well campaigns in Tirunelveli. Shivraj Singh Chauhan campaigns in West Bengal, predicting the downfall of the Trinamool government on May 2. Holds the TMC responsible for corruption and political violence in the state. The Congress left ISF alliance also starts their campaign with a rally in Kolkata. Security forces use force to disperse anti-coup protesters in Myanmar. At least 18 protesters killed in this crackdown, 28th day since the February 1 coup in Myanmar. Most senior leaders, including Aung San Suu Kyi, remain in detention. And wrestler Vinesh Phogat returns to winning ways, wins the gold medal in the women's 53 kg at the Outstanding Ukrainian Wrestlers and Coaches Memorial event, beating the world number 7 and 2017 world champion Vanessa Kaladitskaya 10-8 in the final. Hockey team also blanks Germany 6-1. Our top story, the National Science Day is being observed today. Prime Minister has mentioned in his Mann Ki Baat address, and the day is celebrated every year, we know, as the 28th of February. This is to commemorate the discovery of the Raman effect. So addressing the 74th edition of Mann Ki Baat, the Prime Minister hailed the contribution of scientists in India. Here's our report.
National Science Day is celebrated each year on 28 February to mark the discovery of the Raman effect by Indian physicist Sir C.V. Raman on 28 February 1928. Addressing the 74th edition of Mann Ki Baat, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the contribution of scientist community of India on National Science Day.
आज नेशनल साइंस डे भी है। आज का दिन भारत के महान वैज्ञानिक डॉक्टर सीवी रमन जी द्वारा की गई रमन इफेक्ट खोज को समर्पित है। केरल से योगेश्वरन जी ने नमो ऐप पर लिखा है कि रमन इफेक्ट की खोज ने पूरी विज्ञान की दिशा को बदल दिया था। इससे जुड़ा हुआ एक बहुत अच्छा संदेश मुझे नासिक के स्नेहिल जी ने भी भेजा है। स्नेहिल जी ने लिखा है कि हमारे देश के अनगिनत वैज्ञानिक हैं जिनके योगदान के बिना साइंस इतनी प्रगति नहीं कर सकती थी। हम जैसे दुनिया के दूसरे वैज्ञानिकों के बारे में जानते हैं, वैसे ही हमें भारत के वैज्ञानिकों के बारे में भी जानना चाहिए। मैं भी मन की बात के इन श्रोताओं की बात से सहमत हूँ। मैं जरूर चाहूंगा कि हमारे युवा भारत के वैज्ञानिक इतिहास को, हमारे वैज्ञानिकों को जाने, समझे और खूब पढ़ें।
Prime Minister also specially mentioned the power of science in providing impetus to the idea of self-reliant India. He also stressed on taking science forward with the mantra of lab to land.
जब हम साइंस की बात करते हैं तो कई बार इसे लोग फिजिक्स, केमिस्ट्री या फिर लैब्स तक ही सीमित कर देते हैं, लेकिन साइंस का विस्तार तो इससे कहीं ज्यादा है। और आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान में साइंस की शक्ति का बहुत योगदान भी है। हमें साइंस को लैब टू लैंड के मंत्र के साथ आगे बढ़ाना होगा।
While referring to various innovations of science in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded the works of Hyderabad-based farmer Chintala Venkat Reddy. He developed various breeds of wheat and rice that specially contain vitamin D.
हैदराबाद के चिंतला वेंकट रेड्डी जी हैं। रेड्डी जी के एक डॉक्टर मित्र ने उन्हें एक बार विटामिन डी की कमी से होने वाली बीमारियां और उसके खतरों के बारे में बताया। रेड्डी जी किसान हैं। उन्होंने सोचा कि वो इस समस्या के समाधान के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं। इसके बाद उन्होंने मेहनत की और गेहूं, चावल की ऐसी प्रजातियों को विकसित की जो खास तौर पर विटामिन डी से युक्त है। इसी महीने उन्हें वर्ल्ड इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जिनेवा से पेटेंट भी मिली है।
Prime Minister said many experiments are being done to create wealth from agricultural waste in the country. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, with the country celebrating Magh Purnima on Friday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi made us realize the importance of water. In the 74th edition of Mann Ki Baat, the Prime Minister stressed on the delicate relationship between water and civilization. Take a look.
Ahead of World Water Day on March 22nd, Prime Minister Narendra Modi stressed upon the need for water conservation and said that we should begin efforts right away and conserve water as the summer season is approaching. Prime Minister also enumerated various steps taken to conserve water. Prime Minister lauded the efforts of locals from Tamil Nadu's Thiruvannamalai, where they are running a campaign for conservation of wells in their village.
कुछ दिनों बाद मार्च महीने में ही 22 तारीख को वर्ल्ड वाटर डे भी है। मुझे यूपी की आराध्या जी ने लिखा है कि दुनिया में करोड़ों लोग अपने जीवन का बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा पानी की कमी को पूरा करने में ही लगा देते हैं। बिन पानी सब सून, ऐसे ही नहीं कहा गया है। पानी के संकट को हल करने के लिए एक बहुत ही अच्छा मैसेज पश्चिम बंगाल के उत्तर दिनाजपुर से सुजीत जी ने मुझे भेजा है। सुजीत जी ने लिखा है कि प्रकृति ने जल के रूप में हमें एक सामूहिक उपहार दिया है, इसलिए इसे बचाने की जिम्मेदारी भी सामूहिक है। ये बात सही है। जैसे सामूहिक उपहार है, वैसे ही सामूहिक उत्तरदायित्व भी है। सुजीत जी की बात बिल्कुल सही है। नदी, तालाब, झील, वर्षा या जमीन का पानी, ये सब हर किसी के लिए है। साथियों, एक समय था जब गांव में कुएं, पोखर, इनकी देखभाल सब मिलकर करते थे। अब ऐसा ही एक प्रयास तमिलनाडु के तिरुवन्नामलाई में हो रहा है। यहाँ स्थानीय लोगों ने अपने कुओं को संरक्षित करने के लिए अभियान चलाया हुआ है। ये लोग अपने इलाके में वर्षों से बंद पड़े सार्वजनिक कुओं को फिर से जीवित कर रहे हैं।
Besides, Prime Minister also mentioned the struggle of a villager, Babita Rajput, in Agrotha village in Madhya Pradesh, where she is mobilizing a campaign to rejuvenate the dried up lakes in her village.
मध्य प्रदेश के अग्रोधा गांव की बबीता राजपूत जी भी जो कर रही है, उससे आप सभी को प्रेरणा मिलेगी। बबीता जी का गांव बुंदेलखंड में है। उनके गांव के पास कभी एक बहुत बड़ी झील थी जो सूख गई थी। उन्होंने गांव की ही दूसरी महिलाओं को साथ लिया और झील तक पानी ले जाने के लिए एक नहर बना दी। इस नहर से बारिश का पानी सीधे झील में जाने लगा। अब ये झील पानी से भरी रहती है।
Bringing another inspirational story from the mountains, Prime Minister lauded the efforts of Jagdish Kunyal from Bageshwar, Uttarakhand. Jagdish Kunyal started a unique initiative to plant trees to bring the dried lakes back to life.
उत्तराखंड के बागेश्वर में रहने वाले जगदीश कुनियाल जी का काम भी बहुत कुछ सिखाता है। जगदीश जी का गांव और आसपास का क्षेत्र पानी की जरूरतों के लिए एक प्राकृतिक स्रोत पर निर्भर था, लेकिन कई साल पहले ये स्रोत सूख गया। इससे पूरे इलाके में पानी का संकट गहराता चला गया। जगदीश जी ने इस संकट का हल वृक्षारोपण से करने की ठानी। उन्हें पूरे इलाके में गांव के लोगों के साथ मिलकर हजारों पेड़ लगाए और आज उनके इलाके का सूख चुका वो जल स्रोत फिर से भर गया है।
Making us understand our collective responsibilities, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that within a few days from now, Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain will be initiated by Jal Shakti Ministry. He underlined its credo as catch the rain where it falls when it falls. Prime Minister Modi urged citizens to commit themselves to get existing rainwater harvesting systems repaired, clean up the lakes and ponds in villages and remove impediments in way of water flowing into water sources, thus fully utilizing the resources to conserve rainwater to the maximum.
Well, discussing about the Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Prime Minister said that the first condition for self-reliance is to take pride in your own country. And he added that self-reliant India doesn't remain just an economic campaign. It becomes a national spirit when every countryman takes pride and every countryman connects. Take a look.
आत्मनिर्भरता की पहली शर्त होती है अपने देश की चीजों पर गर्व होना, अपने देश के लोगों द्वारा बनाई वस्तुओं पर गर्व होना। जब प्रत्येक देशवासी गर्व करता है, प्रत्येक देशवासी जुड़ता है, तो आत्मनिर्भर भारत सिर्फ एक आर्थिक अभियान न रहकर एक नेशनल स्पिरिट बन जाता है।
Well, let's move on to our focus story then. ISRO's first launch of 2021 saw 19 satellites, including Amazonia 1 of Brazil, being placed into orbit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated ISRO and the Brazilian President Bolsonaro. Well, the satellite's launch begins a new chapter in Indo-Brazilian cooperation.
3, 2, 1.
It was a proud day for India as ISRO successfully launched PSLV C-51 Amazonia 1, taking Indo-Brazilian ties to the space age. The Brazilian satellite is for monitoring deforestation in the Amazon region and will also effectively analyze diversified agriculture across the Brazilian territory. Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to Twitter to congratulate ISRO and New Space India Limited. Congratulations to New Space India Limited and ISRO on the success of the first dedicated commercial launch of PSLV C-51 Amazonia 1 mission. This ushers in a new era of space reforms in the country. 18 co-passengers included 4 small satellites that showcase dynamism and innovation of our youth. Of the 4 satellites from InSpace, 3 were Unity-Sats, designed and built by educational institutions in India, and 1 was Satish Dhawan Sat, SD-Sat, from Space Kids India. The Space Kids designed SD-Sat is an indigenous miniature spacecraft meant to test the capabilities of LoRa, or long-range technology in space. It could prove useful for future M2M, machine-to-machine communication. The satellite also carries an e-copy of the Bhagavad Gita, Atmanirbhar Bharat logos, and a picture of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, besides names of 25,000 common people into space. Prime Minister Modi extended his congratulations to the Brazilian president on the successful launch. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "Congratulations, President Jair Bolsonaro, on the successful launch of Brazil's Amazonia 1 satellite by PSLV C-51. This is a historic moment in our space cooperation, and my felicitations to the scientists of Brazil." This was ISRO's first launch of 2021. It was PSLV's 53rd flight and the 78th launch vehicle mission from Sriharikota Spaceport. Brazil's Minister of Science and Technology, Marcos Cesar, was present and was elated at the successful launch of the mission. ISRO's chairman, Dr. K. Sivan, congratulated the entire team and said that it is the first ever satellite to be designed and developed with Brazil.
In this mission, India and ISRO feel extremely proud and honored and happy to launch the first satellite designed, integrated and operated by Brazil.
Marcos Cesar said the satellite would begin a new era for Brazil's space industry and added a new dimension to India-Brazilian cooperation.
First of all, it's one more satellite to monitor the country, the Amazon and other biomes in Brazil. As well, it represents a new era of the Brazilian industry for satellites and development in Brazil. It brings inside PEACE, the multi-mission platform that can be used for other satellites. So it's very important. And I could choose better place to be than here in India with all our partnership. And this is very important. This is one step, important step with this partnership that is going to grow up very much.
India's track record in space has been lauded across the world, and ISRO is writing a new chapter in commercial space exploration. With inputs from Philip Matthews, Newsnight Desk, DD India. So that brings us to In Focus tonight, and In Focus is this. Space cooperation, India's competitive advantage. Space cooperation, India's competitive advantage. And to discuss this, we have with us Mr. S. Somnath, Director of the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, and Ajay Lele, a space scientist with the Manohar Parrikar Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Let me first wish both of you scientists on National Science Day. Very happy National Science Day. We'll start with you, Dr. Lele. What does this mean? I mean, you have also, your specialization is also in international relations. What do you think, this means for international relations? South-South cooperation coming up to the fore, India being one of the countries that's, with such a good track record, taking other countries along into space.
I think one has to look at it at 2 to 3 different levels.
Okay.
First, on a science day, definitely this is an achievement for science which has been developed by ISRO for all these years. Secondly, from a commercial perspective, last year in the month of May, Finance Minister had identified 8 strategic sectors for the future development and investment in India, and space was one of the sectors. So the roots of new space were actually could be traced back to the Finance Minister's speech last year. Subsequently, we had one agency for ISRO which was developed in 1992 called Antriksh Corporation,
yes,
which was care of commercial interest of ISRO. Now we have got a new agency with new zeal, which is taking the commercial interest of ISRO to a next level. When you're looking at it as a South-South cooperation or looking at it at an international level, I think this is a very important element as far as India and Brazil collaboration is concerned. On the sidelines of 6th BRICS summit in the year 2014, the rules for this particular launch were there. And subsequently, Brazil ended up into developing the satellite, and today India has successfully launched it. As far as Indo-Brazil collaboration, which goes back, I think that collaboration goes back to the year 2000 onwards. We are giving Brazil the facilities of our ResourceSat satellites. ResourceSat 1 was giving them a data.
Right.
2014 onwards, after we have launched ResourceSat 2, that is giving a data. So as far as
True.
the international collaboration is concerned, it is a bilateral collaboration between India and Brazil, and at a multilateral level, it comes under the rubric of BRICS also.
Okay, Mr. Somnath, ISRO, of course, has proved its capabilities time and time again, and with heavy payloads as well as smaller payloads. But we are seeing that a number of the satellites being launched these days are small, miniature satellites. Is that the future, of satellite communication, setting up constellations of small satellites that communicate with one another more easily, and that's going to really be the area which is going to take. I mean, that's where space, the satellite technology is going. Is that what am I right in saying that?
Yeah, you are right partially. I must say that if you look at the statistics of the number of satellites that are being built and also being projected in the coming years, we see a significant increase in the number of small satellites, and also, as you mentioned, the satellites which will be forming swarms or where we work in collaboration. That type of clusters are increasing. It shows one trend that is currently there in various domains in communication as well as in remote sensing. There is a distinct move towards smaller and larger number of spacecraft. But we also see the trend in the bigger satellites are not dwindling. They continue to remain high in terms of their special nature of being big has an advantage in terms of geostationary satellites and communication satellites, and also long life it provides. So if you look at the total manifesto of number of satellites that are being projected, I can say that there is a good spread across, from big, very big to medium to small and tiny and nano. So, but there is a spurt of increase in numbers in this domain of something like 100 to 500 kilogram range. There is a large sudden increase which we are able to see because the type of constellations currently being proposed. And in this direction, there are many launch service providers are aligning themselves towards launching many of these small satellites.
True.
We are also doing that from ISRO. We are developing a small satellite launch vehicle which will be specifically catering to these satellites, and also to look at a faster to their orbit type of approach that we are developing here.
Indeed. And Dr. Lele, would you see that, the private sector will play a much bigger role? Because when we talk about smaller satellites, perhaps, the costs are less, and there may be other advantages as well. I mean, there would be less space debris, one would think. There would be more effectiveness when there is a constellation of these satellites. Would you see the private sector playing a much more significant role now?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Let Dr. Lele also. Yeah, that's for Dr. Lele. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Lele.
Okay. I think private sector has a major role to play in this direction. This is essentially because nowadays you are having a lot of startups which are getting into the business of a space in India also. So that is a very good sign. And private sector is getting good customers also. And as it was rightly pointed out that India is developing a small satellite launch vehicle. I think most another 3 to long term, which is particularly increasing in the areas of small satellites. The basic reason for this is that there are smaller countries, like if you're talking of, say, Latin America, you got Peru, Ecuador. Then if you're talking of, say, South Asia also, you got smaller countries like Maldives and various other countries who cannot afford very big satellites. But at the same time, their requirements are there. For remote and so forth.
We seem to be having a little problem with your connection, Dr. Lele. So let me bring in Mr. Somnath on that. You were going to talk about the same question, but let's speak a little bit also about the satellites launched today, Mr. Somnath. One was the Space Kids satellite, the SD-SAT. It's testing LoRa or long-range technology, which is going to talk about machine-to-machine communications. Is this a new technology, or I mean, for the layman, people like me, what's actually happening here?
Yeah, Space Kids has been doing a lot of experiments with the small, very small, tiny spacecraft platform. I'm really excited about their enthusiasm to do such experiments. Of course, this experiment is a communication experiment, which they are trying to do for a future larger scale communication experiment. The technology which they are making, in fact, I'm not going to speak about it. It is their proprietary information.
Yes.
So we have made them ride on our PSLV very effectively, and we have been doing it for the space kids earlier also. And I wish all them very great success because of the tiny satellites is a very good platform by which this new technology can be experimented, and that's the most important part of this mission.
And what are the future plans then, Mr. Somnath, for ISRO, given the fact that there will be a larger number of companies that are going to produce satellites? And, I mean, you did talk about a smaller launch vehicle. Is the rest of the year like, full of, are all the dates ticked in a sense that, this is we have a heavy schedule ahead of us?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we have a very heavy schedule ahead of us. In the PSLV missions itself, this year we are lined up about 4 to 5 missions. Some of them are our ISRO missions as well, and some are which include some of the commercial small satellite as well. And but in the coming this year, we are looking at the SSLV to become operational, and also to take more small satellite on board in SSLV also, and we are working towards that. But in the coming days, we have foreseen that there will be demand to launch the smaller range of satellites in clusters also, and we are preparing our PSLV to enable this to happen. And I also want to tell you that we are also preparing our PSLV into a commercial domain, because all of you are aware of the changes that has happened in the space sector, the opening up of it. And I want to tell you this particular mission of PSLV is one where some of the very critical work of the PSLV, including the electrical harnessing and wiring and testing, has been done by private enterprises used under the supervision of ISRO, and we will be slowly handing over these type of activities in the coming years to them to enable PSLV itself production through the industry. And
right.
SSLV also, after our initial launches, we will be handing over them to the industry to produce and launch to meet the increasing demand for small satellite launches from India.
Dr. Lele, I hope your connection is better this time. But the Prime Minister said today, Atmanirbharta is also not just a government policy, it is about national spirit. And we see that, the Space Kids satellite, it basically carried with it an e-copy of the Bhagavad Gita. It also carried, logos of Atmanirbharta, the Prime Minister's photograph, as well as 25,000 names of common people. That is a statement, in a sense, of national spirit.
I think that is very important, because if you have to generate interest into the domain of a space for the younger generation, you need to have certain amount of activities. Somebody may call it belonging to a feel good factor, but there is some logic in behind it. And that's the reason all these things are happening. And if you really look at it, the student community in India has come up in a big way to prepare satellites and ask or request ISRO to launch satellites for them. This is not for the first time the student community has come forward. This Unity satellite has been developed by 3 different agencies, basically the technology organizations, something akin to your engineering colleges. Then you got smaller organizations as a form of an NGO also are encouraging a lot amount of kids. So we have already launched around 10 to 12 satellites. If I remember the names correctly, you had a Kalamsat, you had a AnnaSat, and a few other satellites, which were student satellites. And today also we have seen an increasing participation of the students. So I think if you have to become an Atmanirbhar, you need to have the trained manpower within the country. And this is a very good sign that younger generation is taking interest into space science. And these are the people only who are going to make Atmanirbhar Bharat possible.
A final word from you, Mr. Somnath, about international collaborations now. I mean, are they likely to greatly increase? And what do you see as the future in this space, in this context?
In the area of international collaboration, as you know, that we have been very strong in this. Indian Space Research Organization has many MOUs with all the spacefaring nations. We also look at how we can collaborate in terms of the application side. In this case also with the Brazil, we had a very long association in terms of data usage, which you already mentioned, our earlier remote sensing data sharing. We also have trained some of the Brazil's scientists in terms of building small satellites platforms, which I'm definitely will be useful to them. We also had a discussion today post the launch along with the minister on how we can take the collaborations forward. This is with regard to today's launch. But of course, with regard to the collaboration elsewhere. We have very strong collaboration with the leading spacefaring nations in looking at technology collaborations and in jointly building spacecrafts to look at some of the key issues of atmosphere or issues like climate change and weather and observational platforms. And we also look at some of the propulsion and related technology, sharing knowledge, and then building some of the instruments with them for our future exploratory missions. So there are plenty of collaborative activities taking place in space sector among spacefaring nations and people having interest.
So truly, we have the potential is unlimited. So thank you very much, Mr. Somanath and Dr. Ajay Lele, for enlightening us on these new frontiers that we are moving into. Moving on then to our next story. India's vaccination drive is set to speed up substantially with the involvement of the private sector from Monday. Private hospitals have been asked to cap the cost of the COVID-19 vaccine at 250 rupees. This has been done by the Health Ministry, and all the government hospitals, however, will provide the corona shot free of cost. Senior citizens and those above the age of 45 but have comorbidities, these are people who will be covered in the second phase of India's mass inoculation drive.
After the healthcare workers and frontline workers, India's vaccination drive will include those who are over 60 years of age and for people aged 45 and above with specified comorbid conditions from Monday. 1st of March 2021 will also herald a new front in India's fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, so far limited to the sphere of government hospitals. The inoculation drive in the country will get a massive booster dose as the private hospitals will join the campaign. To ramp up the COVID-19 vaccination capacity, around 10,000 private hospitals under Ayushman Bharat PMJAY and more than 600 private hospitals under the central government health scheme will be utilized. Other private hospitals empanelled under state governments' health insurance scheme can also participate as COVID-19 vaccination centres. The Health Ministry said that beneficiaries can download CoWIN 2.0 app to self-register in advance. Beneficiaries can also do it by using the Arogya Setu app. With the participation of the private medical infrastructure, the vaccination drive will gather momentum, a factor which is considered crucial owing to the surge seen in cases in few states. India's total active caseload has reached 1,64,511 on Sunday. India's present active caseload now stands at 1.48% of India's total positive cases. 6 states, Maharashtra, Kerala, Punjab, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Gujarat have shown a surge in new cases in the last 24 hours. 16,752 daily new cases were registered in the last 24 hours. Maharashtra continues to report the highest daily new cases at 8,623. It is followed by Kerala with 3,792, while Punjab reported 593 new cases. 8 states, Telangana, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir and West Bengal are displaying an upward trajectory in daily new cases. While chairing a high-level review meeting on Saturday with these states and union territories, the Cabinet Secretary reiterated that states need to maintain a continued rigorous vigil. The states and UTs exhibiting a surge in daily cases were advised not to lower their guard, enforce COVID-appropriate behaviour and deal firmly with violations. The centre has also deputed high-level multidisciplinary teams to the identified states and UTs to ascertain reasons for the surge in cases. As of now, in the first phase of the massive COVID vaccination drive underway in the country, a total of 1,43,01,266 vaccine doses have been administered. With effect from Monday, the entire health ecosystem of the country will join the task of ensuring timely inoculation of its citizens. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan campaigned in West Bengal for the BJP, predicting the downfall of the Trinamool government there on May 2. And he holds the TMC responsible for corruption and political violence in the state, as he alleged. Meanwhile, the Congress left an ISF alliance. They have also started their campaign with a rally in Kolkata.
BJP leaders have claimed that the lotus will bloom on not less than 200 seats in West Bengal, and the party seems to be leaving no stone unturned to actually reach that tally. Latest BJP heavyweight to descend on the battleground Bengal is Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Before hitting the campaign, he sought divine blessings in Kolkata's Kalighat and Dakshineshwar temples. Chauhan accused Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee of adopting the policy of discrimination and compromising with the development of the state. He claimed that Bengal will witness change on the 2nd of May.
ये टीएमसी का मतलब है तोड़ो, मारो, काटो। लेकिन सुन लो ममता दीदी, नूर की एक किरण तेरे जुल्मात पे भारी होगी, रात तुम्हारी है लेकिन सुबह हमारी होगी.
Meanwhile, even as election campaign picks up, the incidents of political violence are also being reported with alarming speed. Fresh cases have been reported from Damdam area of North 24 Parganas district, where an attack on BJP activists took place on Friday night. BJP has claimed that 130 activists of the party have lost their lives in the political violence in the run-up to the elections.
I'm very scared. I'm in such a state that I feel threatened. I have been asked to not name them.
While the Congress left parties and ISF alliance in the fray in the state has sounded the poll bugle, with the Kolkata rally, the alliance has begun its campaign in right earnest.
लाख मुराद बुरा चाहे तो क्या होता है, वही होता है जो मंजूरे खुदा होते हैं. ये तो सिर्फ एक झांकी है. सरकार बदलना अभी भी बाकी है. न संघर्ष न तकलीफ, मजा क्या है जीने में. बड़ा बड़ा तूफान थाम जाएगी जब आग लगी हो सीने में.
Cornered with allegations of corruption, extortion, appeasement, nepotism, the ruling Trinamool is facing a tough challenge in the state. And political pundits say that the forthcoming elections will see a direct contest between BJP and Trinamool. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, the Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar inaugurated the virtual exhibition and prize announcement of Khel Khel Mein, a pan-Maharashtra toy game project design competition in New Delhi on Sunday. Speaking on the occasion, the minister said that he is very happy to be a part of this exercise based on Indian values. The minister said that the INB ministry, along with IIT Bombay, shall start courses on gaming from this year onwards.
मूल्यों पर आधारित खिलौने ये भी आधुनिक तरीके से बनते हैं, तो उसका भी प्रचार होगा और इसलिए बॉम्बे आईआईटी के साथ मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन ब्रॉडकास्टिंग का एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग हुआ है और एक गेमिंग सेंटर जहां वीएफएक्स, गेमिंग और एनिमेशन इन तीनों के विभिन्न कोर्सेस जल्दी शुरू होंगे और उसके साथ साथ एक सेंटर भी बनेगा जहां आगे चल के खेलों के विकास के लिए बहुत सारी योजनाएं वहां से कार्यरत होगी.
The BJP President J.P. Nadda inaugurated the newly constructed BJP office in Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh. The office is equipped with all digital facilities, including computerized system, e-library and video conferencing facility. Addressing the occasion, the BJP President enumerated various initiatives launched by the Centre for the Common Man, including Ayushman Bharat scheme, Ujjwala Yojana, Jan Dhan Yojana, among others. Nadda said that the party is working for the transformation in the country, and the program was also attended by Uttar Pradesh's Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath.
हमारा कार्यकर्ता मॉडर्न चीजों से सुसज्जित होकर, नई जानकारियों से सुसज्जित होकर समाज को दृष्टि देगा, दिशा देगा और समाज को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए अपने साथ आत्मसात करके चलेगा, ये मेरा विश्वास है. हम यहां पर सत्ता की राजनीति के लिए नहीं है. सत्ता हमारा माध्यम है, लेकिन वो हमारा लक्ष्य नहीं है. लक्ष्य ये है कि सत्ता में आकर के भारत की तस्वीर बदलना, तकदीर बदलना, विकास की ओर आगे चलना, ये हमारा लक्ष्य है.
Earlier, the BJP President J.P. Nadda addressed the party workers at Harhua And he said that he stressed on Mera Booth Sabse Mazboot campaign, and that we're going to strengthen the party at the booth level. And he said that he was there with the meeting also with the Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. And senior Congress leader Ghulam Nabi Azad has praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Speaking at a function on Sunday, Azad said that Prime Minister has not forgotten his humble beginnings and talks about his past without inhibitions. He was addressing a gathering organized by the Gurjar Desh Charitable Trust.
मुझे बहुत सारी लीडरों की बहुत अच्छी बातें अच्छी लगती हैं। अब जैसे मैं खुद गाँव का तो मुझे बड़ा फख्र होता है कि बड़े लीडर हैं। हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी वो कहते हैं मैं गांव से मैं था, कुछ भी नहीं था, बर्तन मांजता था, चाय में। सियासी तौर हम उससे उनके खिलाफ हैं, लेकिन कम से कम जो अपनी जो असलियत है उसको नहीं छुपा।
Election campaigning has picked up in the poll-bound states. Amit Shah addressed a BJP rally in Karaikal in Puducherry, and Rahul Gandhi campaigned for the Congress in Tirunelveli in Tamil Nadu. Let's get a feel of the political pulse.
Senior leaders in BJP and Congress descended on Tamil Nadu and Puducherry as the election campaign picks momentum for the ensuing assembly elections. Union Home Minister Amit Shah was in Puducherry, while Congress leader Rahul Gandhi was in Tamil Nadu on Sunday to take the reins for their party candidates. Amit Shah addressed a rally in Karaikal, Puducherry, while Rahul Gandhi campaigned in Tirunelveli in Tamil Nadu. Shah lashed out at Rahul Gandhi for his earlier allegation about the lack of a ministry in centre for the welfare of fishermen.
मैं पुदुचेरी की जनता को पूछना चाहता हूं कि जिस पार्टी के नेता 4 टर्म से लोकसभा में है, उसको ये भी मालूम नहीं है कि 2 साल से इस देश में मत्स्य पालन विभाग शुरू हो चुका है। वो पुदुचेरी का कल्याण वो पार्टी कर सकती है क्या, बताइए भाइयों।
Shah also targeted the erstwhile Narayanaswamy government on issues of corruption and unemployment. He alleged Narayanaswamy did nothing for Puducherry's development, instead devoted his energies to serve one family.
सबसे बड़ा झूठ बोलने का अवार्ड अगर दिया जाता है तो बेस्ट रीलर अवार्ड नारायणस्वामी जी को जरूर मिलना चाहिए। उनकी नजर पुडुचेरी के विकास के लिए नहीं होती, उनकी नजर गांधी परिवार की सेवा करने में और चरण स्पर्श करने में ही इनका ध्यान रहता था।
Shah also alleged that there is lack of internal democracy in Congress, and that is the reason why many are now joining the BJP. Bureau Report, DD India.
Later, Amit Shah also addressed a Vijay Sankalp rally in Villupuram in Tamil Nadu, and he accused the DMK Congress alliance of fostering the dynasty rule in the state and targeted the Congress on the issue of corruption.
आने वाले दिनों में आपको फैसला करना है, ये राजे महाराजों के बेटे बेटियों को शासन देने के लिए वोट देना है या तमिलनाडु के विकास के लिए, उदयगिरी को मुख्यमंत्री बनाने के लिए देना है या तमिलनाडु के मेरे मछुआरे के लिए वोट देना है, राहुल गांधी को प्रधानमंत्री बनाने के लिए वोट देना है या मोदी जी के विकास की यात्रा को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए वोट देना है, वो तमिलनाडु की जनता को तय करना है।
Well, the streets of Myanmar turned bloody as the security forces cracked down on the anti-coup protesters in Myanmar. Video filmed by local media showed chaotic scenes as the protesters dragged away injured people to the safety of buildings. Till filing this report, the casualty figure stood at 18, with the possibility of a further addition not ruled out. Take a look at the report.
Streets in Myanmar, which witnessed angry protests by the people against the military coup, have been mute spectators for the past 2 days of the severe crackdown unleashed by the security forces against the protesters. It began on Saturday and the fire flared further on Sunday as many fronts were opened by the clashes, even as protests continued unabated in the country. Many have been injured, and according to media reports, there have been confirmed casualties. In Yangon, dramatic visuals have emerged of police firing on the protesters who in return lobbed Molotov cocktails at them as crackdown on anti-military coup demonstrations entered a second day. Video filmed by local media showed chaotic scenes as protesters dragged away injured people to the safety of buildings. In Dawei, similar scenes unfolded as police fired on the protesters, which left some fatally wounded. Local media said that the Red Cross had confirmed that the protester was shot in the chest, belly and arm and that 3 bullets had been found. This is the most intense and brutal crackdown so far against military rule, with security forces firing tear gas, setting off stun grenades and finally firing bullets to quell the protests. In the capital city of Naypyidaw, the protesters were seen on motorcycles with pictures of ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi amid tight security. The Office of the High Commissioner of UN Human Rights has put the figure of dead in police firing on Sunday at 18 and has said that many more are injured. It has condemned the escalating violence against protesters in Myanmar and called upon the military to immediately halt the use of force against peaceful protesters. The US Embassy in Myanmar, meanwhile, has called the targeting of civilians by the military government as abhorrent. It has further said that it is heartbreaking to see the loss of so many lives in Myanmar and added that people should not face violence for expressing dissent against the military coup. Myanmar was thrown into chaos when the army seized power and detained elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and much of her party leadership, alleging fraud in a November election her party won in a landslide. The coup, which stalled Myanmar's progress towards democracy after nearly 50 years of military rule, has brought hundreds of thousands of protesters onto the streets and drawn condemnation from Western countries, with some even imposing limited sanctions. Bureau Report, DD India.
So that brings us to our second In Focus tonight, and this is it. It is junta crackdown in Myanmar, and joining us to discuss this is Ambassador G. Parthasarathy, former Indian ambassador to Myanmar. Thanks very much, sir, for being with us. First, the issue is about trying to bring about accountability to the current government there. And, you know, the diplomatic corps that's present in Myanmar, are they restricted from acting at a time like this?
Well, no country permits people to enter into, especially foreigners, into riot-affected areas. I think we should bear one thing in perspective. Myanmar is a very complex country. There are 19 armed groups operating against the government, largely functioning from bases outside. Would be in China, sometimes Thailand. And therefore, the majority Myanmar or Burmese people have fought this battle. In the process, they have accumulated an army which has ruled the country for almost 55 over the last 60 years. So it's become a fact and way of life. We generally don't interfere in the internal affairs of neighbors.
Yes.
But Myanmar being a friendly country, we do tell them, and we have told them, that it would be good if they reached a settlement with the people. The problem really is more than the majority Myanmar. The armed groups, especially those functioning out of China's borders, get more active in such situations. So things become more complex. But my own view is that that till the outsiders get involved, this will be somewhat manageable. But I must point out, this is the strongest civil agitation I have seen in that country for the last 60 years.
Indeed, and the human rights record in the country is not very good. I mean, even the
human rights record anywhere in Southeast Asia is not very good.
But even the National League for Democracy didn't have a good record in handling the Rohingya crisis, for one. So,
Yes.
I mean, the question is, what next? Because, I mean, this is a way of life to some extent.
No, I think, for example, I'll give you an example, an exact example. Just about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, President Kalam visited Myanmar. By that time, we have very friendly relations. After all, they help us in dealing with our insurgencies with ULFA, the NSC, NIM, or other groups. And we do likewise. Let's be clear. If their insurgent parties enter Indian territory, we'll deal with them. And we have dealt with them. So it's preservation of each other's unity is important. But yes, we are the one country who are able to influence them because we have no access to grind and we are a good neighbor. And while we've been cautioning them on the Rohingya issue and trying to bring back refugees from Bangladesh, that's a rather complex problem. So, India and most of Myanmar's neighbors don't comment on this because many countries in Southeast Asia are not exactly democratic. And one has to deal with them. But yes, we will keep reminding the government. After all, just before this, you had the army chief and the foreign secretary there.
Okay.
They met Aung San Suu Kyi, they met General Min Aung Hlaing, the military chief. And therefore, the message we have always conveyed to them is, look, please settle these things peacefully. It's not good for you, not good for the region. And they'll come around, but after some time.
And what would you say? ASEAN has and East Asia, these groupings have some sort of a hold on the situation. They can convey, put some pressure.
ASEAN is hopelessly divided. Okay. There are other neighbors. Whereas Indonesia and Malaysia were willing to sort of try and create an ASEAN organization which could deal with this issue. Most other countries, whether it is Cambodia or Thailand or Laos or Vietnam, they said nothing doing, they won't be interfering in the internal affairs of another country. So, as I said, India is one democratic neighbors of theirs, which gently tries to push them, primarily because they know that when they have their problems with their insurgent groups, the one neighbor who will help them is India, unlike China, which allows at least 5 of these insurgent groups to operate from within their territory, in their Yunnan and other provinces. But nevertheless, when Vietnam, Myanmar gets isolated, it moves more towards China. So we have multiple tasks. 1, restore democracy and stability. 2, not to allow China to create a situation which causes us a problem, because from our insurgent groups, those who cross the border head into the Yunnan province and are armed and trained inside the Yunnan province of China. So it is a complex security situation, but we are one neighbor who pushes for democracy, but does it in a manner which does not interfere in their internal affairs, because they have a problem of national unity.
Indeed. And we definitely don't, support any of these groups that are functioning there. But the fear is that subversive elements can at this point of time, and state actors can, because the state is fragile at the current time.
Yes, the fact of the matter is that also the army this time has not acted with the usual common sense that they have done. There have been excesses, and they have also been taken aback by the resistance. After all, they've had now nearly 10 years of democratic rule under Aung San Suu Kyi.
Yes, yes.
So you taste democracy, you want more of it. But at the same time, in a country like Myanmar, it will take time.
Believe that. Thank you very much, Ambassador G. Parthasarathi, for enlightening us on the situation in Myanmar. Moving on then to our next story, the US regulators have formally approved the single-shot Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine, the 3rd jab to be authorized in that country. The vaccine is set to be cost-effective alternative to the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, and it can be stored in a refrigerator instead of a freezer. Trials found it prevented serious illnesses. It was 66% effective overall when moderate cases were included. The vaccine is made by the Belgian firm Janssen. And, the company has, in fact, agreed to provide the US with 100 million doses by the end of June. The first doses these could be available to the US public as early as next week. The UK, the EU and Canada have also ordered doses, and about 500 million doses have been ordered through the COVAX scheme to supply poorer countries as well. The US President Joe Biden hailed it as an exciting bit of news for the Americans and an encouraging development, but he warned that the fight is far from over. The authorization by the US Food and Drug Administration, that's the FDA in the US, it came after the external committee of experts unanimously backed this vaccine. Results from trials conducted in the US, South Africa and Brazil showed that it was more than 85% effective in preventing serious illnesses and 66% effective overall when moderate cases were included, as we said earlier. Notably, there were no deaths among the participants who had received the vaccine and no hospital admissions after 28 days post the vaccine. Overall protection was lower in the South African and the Brazilian. In South Africa and Brazil, where the virus variants they have become dominant. But defense against severe or critical illness was similarly high. So at least it reduces the threat from the illness. Auckland has moved to alert level 3 lockdown. This is for 7 days following the announcement by the Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern late last night. After a new local case of the coronavirus of unknown origin emerged, the rest of the country has transitioned to level 2 for a week. The lockdown with level 3 restrictions will allow people to leave home only for essential shopping and essential work. Meanwhile, public venues will remain closed. New Zealand is one of the most successfully developed countries. It has been successful in controlling the spread of the pandemic so far, and has seen just over 2,000 cases of coronavirus since the start of the pandemic over a year ago. The US top infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci warned that the country's progress in COVID-19, the fight, it appears to have stalled. And his remarks came amid increasing COVID-19 infections and deaths related to the disease in the US. Against the backdrop, Fauci pointed out that the United States has stalled in terms of the decline of the confirmed cases and deaths, and he stressed that the country needs to scale up vaccination and to reduce the test positivity rate. He suggested that before achieving the above goals, the state-level governments, they should not ease restrictions. The United States is leading the globe in terms of the number of confirmed cases and deaths, as we are well aware. And with that, we conclude News Night for tonight. Thanks for your time and company. Namaskar.
He is a man